Hello everyone, my name is TheMadScorpyon and welcome back to Destiny 2. I am still afflicted with the plague, so I'm just going to do my best to get through this without sounding terrible. So it is the Final Shape armor tuning preview before this week in Destiny. And there is lots of words which seem to contain most of the details, so I shall go through the full bit. Subclass matching Prismatic and U. Our existing armor and mods were originally released in a world where each subclass is only ever given a single element. Since that will no longer be true with the release of Final Shape, we've taken a pass at our existing gear. For the most part, this meant updating exotic armor and armor mods to reference a player's equipped super element instead of a specific subclass. This allows their effects to function on Prismatic without changing their behavior or the original subclass. For example, Hoarfrost Z will require just a stasis super to be equipped, rather than the full stasis subclass. We've taken the opportunity to update the description of harmonic mods to better explain their behavior and fully support Strand on resistance mods. However, in a few places we want to make sure there were more meaningful trainings, detailing below along with reasoning. Triton Vice, the Hunter Glaive exotic, no longer requires a glaive that matches your subclass to trigger its extra detonations. Given the limited pool of glaive options, we wanted to open up to support a wider variety of builds. We also wanted to give the glaive melee bonus linger for a bit after you stop being surrounded to add some ease of use and to bring it further into parity with Synthocepts. The glaive projectile final blows now always trigger a detonation that matches the glaive's damage type even when the glaive does not match the subclass, and the surrounded effect was provided by Triton Vice when wielding a glaive now lingers on the player for 5 seconds after no longer being surrounded. The Dragon Shadow has been updated to trigger its effects when using Ensnaring Slam or the new Ascension Arc aspect, opening up more build crafting combinations. Foe Tracer now grants the bonus damage it inflicts on a target to weapons. The damage type also matches that of the ability used to damage the target, instead of always matching your equipped subclass. With Prismatic, you can apply a variety of damage elements with your abilities, and this change allows Foe Tracer to buff multiple different weapon types, instead of just one that matches your subclass or super element. Wanted to add an extra benefit to 6th Coyote along with Armamentarium, since otherwise the Spirit of Coyote perk and the new exotic class items would have been granted the same benefits as the original exotic. We took inspiration of Claws on Ahamkara and added the ability for the 6th Coyote to create orbs of power from the final blows on your ability. This implemented as the exotic, granting a free copy of Reaper mod power effects. Renewal Grasp is updated with the new Frost Armor keyword. On entering your Dustfield Grenade volume, you or allies gain a stack of Frost Armor, and about every 0.9 seconds an additional stack of Frost Armor is granted, resetting the active timer. Star Eater Scales has always been strong exotic, but after the Lightfall changes to armor mods, orbs of power are much easier to come by. Want to adjust Star Eater balance with the efforts to gain its powerful effects. On top of this, we're making a change regarding its efficiency when paired with multiple hunters running Golden Gun Marksman to reduce its potential for fight teams to loop supers. Definitely. Thanks, Clyde. Increases the orb of power required to grant the maximum of orb benefits from 4 to 6. Reduce the increased super energy gain per orb when the Golden Gun is equipped from 2% down to 0.25. So hopefully that hammers that out, but it is mostly just a nerf for specifically Golden Gun. So hopefully Star Eaters is more useful in the long run. We've updated Ursa Furiosa for Titans to improve the new Void aspect, Unbreakable, in addition to its previous effects. Now it provides increased movement speed when guarding with Unbreakable, also grants super energy for guarding with Unbreakable. The energy scales based on the amount of incoming damage the shield absorbs. Eternal Warrior now no longer requires the Arc subclass for Arc Final Blows to grant it escalating Arc weapon damage bonus. This allows it to synergize with Prismatic builds more easily. Its behavior related to Fist of Havoc is unchanged. Like the 6th Coyote above, Armamentarium was updated with additional benefits beyond, granting a second charge. Now creates a orb of power with grenade final blows. Implemented, gets a free copy of Firepower. Kepri's Horn, lackluster and probably always will be until a major rework. Increases the damage from Solar Blast by 100% in PvE. The Solar Blast now scorches each time it hits an individual target instead of only scorching once, and now benefits from the Ember of Eruption and Ember of Ashes, plus 30% scorch in PvE and 15% scorch, or 15 stacks in PvP. Heart of Inmost Light buffs in the HUD could easily crowd out other important information. We felt it could be less verbose in its HUD feedback, so now it displays a single consolidated status effect in the icon HUD to communicate its states instead of 2 to 3 used before. Its effects, though, are unchanged, so this is purely quality of life. Synthocepts is an exotic all about being in the thick of the group of enemies, as its effect has potent to offset the inherent danger of being surrounded. However, he felt it was too easy to carry those powerful effects once triggered into far less dangerous 1v1 encounters. Reduce the amount of time the biotic enhancement lingers after no longer being surrounded from 8 to 5 seconds. Its duration is now visible as a timer on the buff. Severance Enclosure is a particularly noisy exotic when it comes to its efforts blasting enemies around the battlefield. We want to alleviate some of the noise and awkwardness around the explosion to better bring it in line with some of the other area effects on exotics. Its explosions now require line of sight to damage enemies. It also reduce the knockback intensity of these explosions, which will now launch enemies more consistently vertically. Well, hopefully just vertical is fine as long as it doesn't throw enemies away, but I do hate that first bit because I do enjoy Severance on Void. For the Warlocks, Mantle of Battle Harmony has been adjusted to grant more super energy for defeating powerful enemies, and the cooldown on granting super energy has been removed. It's intended to make them more potent in a wider variety of activities. Now grants super energy ranging between 1.5 and 4.5 depending on the target type killed. Move the 2-second cooldown on the perk activation. Ballador's Wrathweavers have updated to grant the new Frost Armor Stasis keyword instead of the old Stasis Shard Overshield. Activating a Rift grants you and nearby enemies the maximum Frost Armor stacks when Frost Pulse is equipped. Activating Winter's Wrath Shatter Attack grants nearby allies the maximum amount of stacks of Frost Armor. When your Winter's Wrath ends, you gain maximum stacks of Frost Armor. Seeking Filaments. Empowering Rift will now reset a player's existing Devour buff back to 11 seconds when they entered it in addition to previous behavior. Verity's Brow now requires final blows to the weapon matching your grenade's damage type instead of the one matching your equipped subclass damage type. This better supports using it on Prismatic. Sunbracers have obviously been quite overused. We want to bring sound to some of extreme potency and crowd control while also tackling the visual noise it produces on the battlefield. However, we didn't want to remove its core identity of blanketing the battlefield with solar light. Reduce the increased solar grenade rotation from 4 to 2 seconds, and reduce the increased grenade recharge rate to allow a maximum of 4 grenades when the effect is active down from 5. So it still does what it does, just not as potently. When multiple warlocks use Cenotaph on a single target, it has resulted in far more heavy ammo than is healthy for the sandbox. It also pushes fire teams into all using the same build, which is more reductive than we would like. Multiple players using Cenotaph can no longer trigger its effect on a single target. Cenotaph's target lock visual marker is now hidden for the exotic's wearer and only appears on the wearer's allies. Powered melee and armor effects. The term powered melee has always intended to mean spending a melee charge. However, subclass elements like combination blow or knockout allow players to circumvent this cost. This made it difficult to balance the potency of effects that required a powered melee, especially across all subclasses and systems. We want to standardize the better across the sandbox. We're starting by updating Severance Enclosure and Assassin's Cowl to only trigger their effects when a player spends a melee charge or uses a finisher to get a final blow. We plan on rolling this type of change out to more content that triggers a powered melee in future updates. Unfortunate. Exotic Artifice upgrades. Even though you spent the time to get that triple 100 Artifice armor set for your build, one piece always felt a bit left out, whether you're looking to make it everything match or get at least the last +3 resilience or want to get your hands on Artifice gear for the first time. Figured it was about time to make up the tie for loose ends. With the release of Final Shape, Exotic Armor will now be able to access the unique mod slot and free stats of Artemis Armor. Woo! Exotic Armor can now be upgraded after it has been fully masterworked, granting an Artifice slot. This comes at the cost of an Exotic Cipher and 10k Glimmer. The Ammo Finder update. In the live game now, heavy ammo and special ammo finder mods reset their progress towards ammo brick whenever you die. This leads to players receiving less ammo and harder difficulty activities, especially when they are playing right on the edge of their skill level. In fact, if you're unlucky enough with the timing of your character dying, it was possible to never get any finder bricks at all. In the final shape, we wanted to make ammo finders more predictable for players across all activities, so heavy and special ammo finder mods will persist progress through ammo brick generation through death. This means that you always have a finder brick if you defeat enough enemies, regardless of how many times you die along the way. Because of this change, we disabled armor finder mods in Crucible, and player kills will no longer grant armor finder mods in Gambit. I also found this change dramatically increases the amount of ammo players would have received on average, so we have increased the kill requirements for both special and heavy finders by 20% for Guardians in a fire team. However, solo Guardians will have to resurrect them, will have no one to resurrect them, so the change for them is unchanged. For raid armor mods, the narrow application of raid armor mods that allows us to give potent benefits unique to raids in which they are used. However, while the benefits are strong, they currently don't feel impactful enough in practice, especially since some of them may not fit in your existing build. As a result, with the release of the final shape, we're making it much easier to layer these extra elements as you go for the perfect weapon roll, removing all mod energy costs for raid specific armor mods. But with that, that is the conclusion. most of everything sounded positive. Like, again, like the last time, there was definitely a lot of buffs going out. However, there was a sudden one or two changes that felt kind of unnecessary for, like, in the terms of Severance and Closure. Just because the explosion now requires line of sight, it was quite an underutilized exotic, at least for me. I rarely see it in popular play, and when I use it, it is definitely a haymaker for the enemies. So, but aside from that, powered melee, of course, it is another hit for Severance and Closure, as there was ways to subvert its powered melee use, but I guess that is required because it is subverting design. But from that point, that is everything going on with this change. Of course, there will be This Week in Destiny to look forward to if you want more details, but that has been the Final Shape Armor Tuning Preview. I shall see you in the next video.